Welcome to my summer house. I built this 18 years ago whilst I was waiting for my son to be born. It's like a displacement activity. It's doing pretty well. 18 years, still standing. I want to talk today a little bit about what's probably going to be 3 or 4 really important issues. Now, I talk to a lot of people who have anxiety, and these issues almost always crop up. And particularly these are important if you struggle with a combination of physical symptoms which are really strong and anxiety, depression, panic, etc. So I want to explain what these processes are. And of course, you know, knowledge is always power, and once you're aware of them, then we have the possibility of doing something about them. All human behaviour, actually I suppose all animal behaviour, all behaviour let's call it, is purposeful. And that means that your brain has a purpose in doing everything. Now, if you're having the experience of your body doing things that you don't want it to do, then you have a conflict. The larger part of your brain, let's say the unconscious part, which is easily 99%, is busy giving you the symptoms of panic, anxiety, depression, stress, etc. And that bit of your brain that you call consciousness, that bit of the brain that you call you, is saying, I don't want this. So we have a conflict. We have the purposeful behaviour that your brain is creating for some purpose. You might not understand what the purpose is, but your brain is doing it for a reason. And then you're having the bit of you that you call you saying, I don't want this. So this conflict is the kind of fundamental conflict at the heart of all mental health problems, because no one says I want to be depressed. No one says I want to be anxious. No one says I want to have panic attacks, and yet your brain is giving these experiences to you. It can be really easy to think of yourself as a victim of, let's say, panic, anxiety, depression, stress. And it can feel like you're a victim, or it can feel like you're victimized. But this is, I think, a really unhelpful way to think about it, because your brain is giving you every unpleasant symptom that you have. It's giving you every unhelpful belief that you have. It's giving you every unhelpful, counterproductive behavior that you do. Your brain is giving you the physical sensations of panic and anxiety. So if you are a victim, you're victimizing yourself, which really doesn't make any sense. So I think we have to change our perspective a little bit. We have to take ownership over the problem. Your brain creates the problems that you have. Now there are external factors. Sure, you might have some unpleasant people that you work with, you might have difficult relationships, you may have had experiences in the past. Okay, but your brain is creating the experience you have moment by moment every single day. And to a large degree what's happened to you is done, but your brain can be using that information to create your current experiences. So you need to take ownership over your present experience, which means when you take ownership, you take responsibility for it. And when you take responsibility for it, you have the opportunity to, let's say, do something about it. One of the saddest things that I find when I browse the internet, I look at Facebook, etc., and I dip into groups, and I hear people saying, oh, I've had anxiety for 25 years, and I've tried this medication and this medication and this medication and this medication. And I think to myself, it's almost like you got used to it. It's almost like, yeah, right, this is just part of my life, this is just what it is. And I find that really sad, because anxiety does not have to be a part of your life. It's simply a thing that your brain is giving you, because your brain, in a sense, has determined that this is something which is meaningful to you. But then to medicate it, as opposed to deal with it, work with it, understand it, get rid of it, is like a maintenance strategy. I accept that I'm going to be anxious, and I'm going to maintain my anxiety at this current level for the rest of my life. It's absolutely certain that the medication will not eradicate anxiety, because the medication is simply making it more acceptable to live with anxiety. It's not going to get rid of it, because it's not at all related to the processes that create the anxiety. So I think we get, let's call it problem blindness. We just get used to it, and we just live with it in a sense. And that means that you're just going to live with it. Nothing's going to change. And to expect something to change is just sort of wishful thinking, really. I've done office work, and I've commuted, and I've I've done, what I would think of as somewhat stressful jobs. And I know how easy it is to get focused on the details of something and to lose the big picture. And I think that one of the mistakes that we make when we struggle with mental health problems is that we get focused on the details of the problem and we forget to look at the big picture. And the big picture is, in a sense, the purposes, the greater purposes, the ideas, the goals and the designs that we have for our life. These are the things that will pull us out of panic and anxiety, etc. They'll allow us to elevate ourselves. Whereas when we tunnel into the details of problems and we focus on the details and we get kind of lost in just the detail, and 1 year blends into another year, then we're giving into something that's really easy for humans to do, which is to focus on details and fail to step back and see the bigger picture. So let me dig into a few other things. Let me dig into something a little bit deeper and see if we can develop this notion of empowerment a little bit more. Because your brain creates the problems that you have, therefore your brain is fully capable of resolving the problems that you have. It's not like your brain creates an edifice which is totally impenetrable, impervious to change. Your brain is always willing to change, and it's always actually changing. For instance, you can learn things every single day of the week, and you can stop doing things every single day of the week. People break habits, even powerful habits like smoking, alcohol, drugs, gambling. People break these addictions. You can change habits that your brain is really wedded to, but likewise you can learn all of the time. But what we don't do, and this is the thing that I see as being the huge problem, we don't put effort into learning how not to be anxious or depressed. We simply accept it. And this brings me to the first of my kind of really critical points. When you have powerful internal experiences, which panic and anxiety and depression are, you tend to assume that your internal experience accurately reflects reality. Now, if you listen to my videos, you'll know that there are two realities. The first one is, let's call it external reality. And the second one is internal reality. And we make the mistake of thinking that our internal reality is the only reality that there is. We make the mistake of thinking that our transient internal experiences, our internal reality experiences, have some greater validity and indicate some permanent and meaningful truth. The truth is, your emotions change all the time. But if you look at, for instance, feeling anxious as a sign of weakness, or if you look at feeling panicky as a sign of that there's an actual threat, then you're kind of mistaking this transient internal experience for something actually meaningful. It's not meaningful, and permanent and kind of established, and it's not that either. What establishes negative experiences like panic, etc., is that we give them we elevate them to an importance that they don't actually have. And when we do that, of course, we give them an importance. I know it feels like they take from us, but actually we give them importance. So the first kind of really critical thing is we've got to recognize that our internal experience is transient, it's always changing, and sometimes you feel anxious, sometimes you don't. It's meaningless, it tells you nothing. It's just your imagination, like playing tricks. But if you have these experiences of feeling powerful internal sensations, and then you interpret them as something really meaningful, that telling you something about the external world, oh, I feel this, therefore I am weak. I feel this, therefore I am a failure. Therefore I feel this, therefore people will judge me. When you turn it into that kind of meaningful thing, you're giving it a lot of power over you. The second issue I want to talk about is what often in psychology we call experiential avoidance. If you have an experience that you don't like, there are two ways to deal with it. The first way is to figure out what it is, why you're having it, and in a sense to work to change it. And the second way is to avoid it and try strategies to get rid of it. When we fuse our internal experience with external reality meanings, I feel this, therefore I am weak. I feel this, therefore I am unlovable, or I'm a failure. When we fuse our internal reality experience with sort of external characteristics, it's very tempting for us to manage this internal experience in an unhelpful way. So for instance, worry is a very, very common characteristic. I've almost never met anyone, in fact I don't think I've met anyone ever who had an anxiety disorder that didn't also worry a lot. So worry is a kind of a management strategy. I feel anxious, I wonder why. Perhaps it's because of this, perhaps it's because of this, perhaps it's because of this. Likewise, rumination. Did that meeting go well? Did those people look like they approved of me or liked me? Trying to post hoc, after the fact, understand what went on when you've got no more information. These are all processes that kind of make problems worse, because you're trying to figure out a problem that doesn't exist. If you think about a worry, for instance, and I always use the example, so I apologize. What if the plane crashes? Okay, you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. The plane hasn't crashed. What will it be like if the plane crashes? Well, you can't know. What will it be like if I drive on the motorway? I might have an accident. Well, you might, but then again, you might not. So we're always trying to sort of elaborate and solve a problem that doesn't exist. It may exist in the future, but then, all sorts of things may exist in the future. We have no control over the future. We only have control over some bit of our present. And likewise, when we go back over things that have happened and wonder whether we did things appropriately, the truth is, we're only ever finding opportunities to criticize ourselves. You never go back over something from the past and say, oh, that was a good job. I did well. I was brilliant. People really liked me. You just don't do it, because we just don't do it. So avoidance of internal problems can look like active problem solving, like where you're worrying or you're ruminating. But more commonly, you avoid going to places, you avoid people, you avoid talking about certain subjects. I've known many people that avoid talking about things because they're frightened that it's going to do something to them. So experiential avoidance is usually a bad strategy. It's universally unhelpful, let's put it that way. The final one I want to talk about is when you get stuck in the details, like of how you feel, of what your symptoms are, you lose the big picture and you start to make decisions for your life, today and tomorrow, the next day, based upon managing those symptoms. So, I can't go to that party because what if I'm anxious? Or I can't go to that meeting because I might have a dry throat. You're creating scenarios, and then you're acting as if those scenarios have a real validity, and so you don't do stuff. But what we need to do is actually, we need to get out of the tunnel and we need to rise up and see the bigger picture for our lives. The way forward is to do things in your life that are meaningful to you. So if you like going for walks, then go for walks. Yeah, but what if I have a panic attack on the walk? Well, so what? The fact is, if you go for a walk because you want to go for a walk, you're taking positive steps forward, you're unlikely to have a panic attack. Panic attacks come from fear, and if you're moving forward, you're acting with bravery as opposed to fear. What if I blush? Well, what if you do blush? You're not giving in to the fear, you're acting positively, you're moving your life forward. So I guess there are always, we have 2 feet, right? We can be on the front foot or we can be on the back foot. If we're on the back foot, we're making decisions based upon our symptoms and trying to manage the symptoms. This always causes more problems. When we're on the front foot, we're saying, actually, you know what? In my life, I like to go places, I like to meet people, I like to do things. And that's what we're doing. And that then puts us in a positive position, and that's the way forward. A front foot stance is progressive and empowering. A back foot stance is disempowering, and it keeps your symptoms in play longer and it makes them more difficult to manage. So look, your brain creates your problems. That's it. You might feel like a victim of your problems. I wish I didn't have these problems. Okay, but instead of managing your life around these problems, which gives them a huge amount of validity And meaning, what we have to do is to recognize that these problems have been created by your brain, and therefore they can be uncreated by your brain. Your brain makes them, your brain can unmake them. Your brain's only making them for reasons, in a sense, your brain thinks are meaningful. And a lot of times, those reasons are because of the strategies you're using to manage the problem. When you worry, you're telling your brain you want to worry more. When you ruminate, you're telling your brain that you might not be very clever or very successful, and that people are thinking bad things about you. So you better try and figure out what it is. Your strategies to manage how you feel are likely enough creating the problem and magnifying it. So we have to helicopter up. Think of yourself as a person, and I mean this absolutely 100%, you don't have a problem. For the vast majority of people, you do not have a problem with mental health. You just think that you do. And therefore your brain is creating symptoms commensurate with that belief. And you're doing things which are also commensurate with that belief, and that's perpetuating the symptoms. You don't need to have a mental health problem. Virtually nobody does. And even when I've worked with people who have significant genetic predispositions or things that you'd say, well, okay, that's really a significant biological factor for a mental health problem. It still can be managed, it still can be improved upon. Your experience of your life is creative. We've got to embrace that creativity so that you can move forward and eradicate these problems, because you just don't need to have them. But if you believe you do, well, then you do. But if you believe you don't, then you don't. I hope you find this interesting. In my summer house, I apologise if the bird noise is quite loud. There are pigeons and birds at the back there making eggs. Please subscribe and like this video if you like this video. And if you want to get all of the tools and resources that you need to be able to reprogram your brain out of panic, anxiety, etc., then check out the Anxiety Wizard program. This month is May, and this month is Empowerment Month. It's all about empowerment for Mental Health Awareness Month. So check out the link and get the Anxiety Wizard program and 4 other programs completely free. Thanks for taking the time to watch and listen.